Hello, hello everyone, and welcome back to our webinar using social media as a research tool. We're very pleased to have a team back from Meta to talk more about their newest innovations to introduce the Meta Content Library, which I'm sure will be of great value for a lot of researchers. And we see that a lot of people are already coming in. As with every of our sessions, we are recording this and then we'll upload it to our YouTube channel where you can just watch it if you kind of missed something. If you have questions, please use the Q&A function. It is much easier for us to follow. We have 3 people here from the team, so maybe if there's some kind of smaller, kind of just clarification questions, I would suggest that maybe you just keep an eye and just answer them on the way. And then we can keep the kind of bigger questions for the end to have a discussion about this. But yeah, very happy to see some familiar faces here already that we already had before. So we have Michael Sorop from Meta, Christina Fan, and also Jane Rubenstein, who hasn't joined us, I think, so far. So new face from Meta. And as usual, we have about 40 minutes that the speakers will introduce the content library, and then at the end we have the Q&A. So over to you guys. Thank you very much for joining us here.
Great. Thank you so much, Anja. It's lovely to be back. And hello, everyone. We're really happy to be here. This is our favorite part of the job, is getting to actually interface with the researchers on the other side. So happy to be back. And I'm just going to do a quick introduction on behalf of the team. Some of you have met me before, but my name is Christina Fan, and I'm joined here by my teammates, Michael Zurob and Yair Rubenstein, just like Anja said. And we are part of the Meta Research Partnerships team. And so our job is to connect the external independent researchers of the world with our products and data sets here at Meta. And today, especially, we're very excited to introduce to you one of our newest products. So we have experts on the line, Michael and Yair, who will go into a lot more detail than I will about the products and show you some demonstrations today. But just wanted to say that we're really excited, and we know that you might have questions. So we're here to answer them. And if you have any support that you might need when it comes to applying or getting access, we are also the team that will help you with that as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my teammate, Yair, who will get us started, but I'll be around if you have any questions at the end as well. Yair?
Thanks, Christina. I'm just going to go over really quickly the agenda for today. So essentially, we'll start with a high-level overview of the products, of our new products, then like some information on how to gain access to them. I will then give you a live demo of the new tool's user interface, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Michael, who will show you a live demonstration of the API. So just and then we'll have the chance to answer all of your questions when we after we're done with the demo. So it's the agenda for today. So just to give you an overview of the products, as Christina already mentioned, these are kind of a suite of new research tools that we're rolling out for researchers. And I think it's helpful to think of the content library and the content library API as kind of 2 methods of accessing what is essentially one library of public data. So the first method being the graphical user interface displayed here on the left, and then second, the application programming interface, or API, featured here visually on the right. The user interface is geared more towards non-technical users to be able to explore this database in a visual, kind of graphically driven way, whereas the API can be used by researchers familiar with Python and R programming languages to more programmatically retrieve data from the library. I also want to emphasize the public nature of the data available in the library. So the content library provides access only to content that users have made publicly viewable on Facebook and Instagram. So for Facebook, this means public pages, public groups, and public events. And for Instagram, this means public posts and data from creator and business accounts. So before I dive into showing you these tools in action, I wanted to give you all a sense of the 3 kind of overarching principles that govern our approach to sharing this public data with researchers. And those 3 principles are privacy, independence, and transparency. So we put these principles into practice in many different ways. I won't go into detail on all of the ways that you see listed here, but I will call out a few examples that I think might have particular relevance for researchers such as yourselves. So just starting with privacy. So the public content available in this database is going to be made available to researchers within a data clean room. And by doing so, we aim to enable robust analysis while guarding against unauthorized access to or use of the data. And I'll go in a few slides from now into more detail about how this clean room works in practice. Alongside the clean room, we've also implemented measures to remove user-deleted public data from researcher notebooks within the clean room every 30 days, and this is done to honor user privacy expectations. What this means essentially is that when a user deletes or makes their public content private, that content and the data associated with it will no longer surface on the API or remain in the data set. So at the end of the day, with these privacy safeguards, we're essentially seeking, to find the appropriate balance, right, between making these products as efficacious for yourselves as researchers, while also honoring the privacy expectations of our users. So this is a balance, that's admittedly difficult at times to strike, right? Because, we have kind of different audiences that we're both trying to satisfy, but we do hope by implementing things like this clean room and our kind of deletion policy that we'll be able to find the appropriate balance. So researcher independence is our second principle, and that's one that we take very seriously. So we've implemented independent review of applications submitted to the Meta Content Library. What this means is that all applications to general access for Meta Content Library will be conducted and reviewed by the University of Michigan's Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, otherwise known as ICPSR. And this is an institution within the University of Michigan that has decades of experience facilitating this kind of work, hosting data repositories, working with researchers, both within the United States, but also around the world. So they have great expertise and experience in facilitating access to these kinds of data. So we're particularly excited to be able to partner with them in this endeavor. And what this means essentially is that Meta will not play a role in the process or decide, who will get access. So it's completely independent from Meta. We also won't ask to review the research findings or manuscripts from researchers prior to their publication. We won't place restrictions on the topic of research. And finally, our tools are available to global researchers who can be affiliated with institutions from most countries around the world. So just want to emphasize as well that, especially those of you today calling in from outside the US, that this is really meant to facilitate research on a global scale as well. Transparency is the final principle that's really been baked into the development of these products from the get-go. So it goes further than ever before in providing transparency into public conversations on our platforms compared to previous meta research tools. And some of the examples of this includes new data types and metrics, such as lifetime view counts for public posts. We also have detailed data and search quality disclosures available in our developer documentation, which is publicly available. So you can kind of dig into the details, look under the hood if you want to get a sense of the search infrastructure and the way the data is structured within these tools. So now I just want to give you more details on how to actually gain access to these tools. So we essentially right now have a kind of two different parallel tracks for access. One is through an early access program, which I will detail in the next slide. And the other is applying for general access through ICPSR. And I'll explain kind of why we've had it structured this way. And you'll kind of get more clarity onto how this parallel track program works. So just to explain this early access program, so this is something we just started rolling out earlier this month. We're still working out a few of the kinks with regards to onboarding, but it should be a very straightforward and not particularly heavy lift from your side if this is an approach that those in attendance are interested in. Essentially, what this would allow you to do is to test the tools before applying for general access. And the benefit of this essentially is, so there are a few kind of application requirements via ICPSR that, depending on your institution and, who's on vacation or, who's on leave, there's all kinds of, possibilities when it comes to applying for these tools that could take, from 1 month to several months. Obviously it all depends on your institution. So essentially the idea behind the early access program is to give you like immediately access to the tools for testing purposes, to see while you're kind of going through the general access pipeline, allows you to kind of make sure that this is a good fit for your use case, for your research, before having to go through, the steps for general access. So this is kind of the reason why we've implemented this. So it's a 60-day access period, allowing you to test the tool. So we ask you, not to use this as a means for publishing your research, but merely as a means to kind of explore the data set, test the tools themselves, see if this is a good fit for your research. Within the 60-day period, you'll receive documentation and support from our technical team if any questions arise. And then afterwards, we only ask that you fill out a survey about your experience using the tools. And I should say, this kind of feedback we find very, very valuable. We've already implemented a lot of feedback we've received from researchers in earlier testing periods of this tool. So I'll point out a few of those when I give you the demo, but this is also just something I want to emphasize as well. So it's mutually beneficial for you to, give us feedback, both because obviously it's valuable for us, but we also hope and, consider this valuable for yourselves as well, given how much of the feedback we've already directly implemented, both in the user interface and the API. So that's just to give you a sense of this kind of beta program overview that we've implemented. And this will be done directly through us. So this is not through ICPSR. This is a process where we just quickly onboard you on the Meta side. So it's nothing to do with the University of Michigan, and it's the kind of Meta hosted, 60-day access period. Of course, applications for general access are open as of now. So if you don't want to do the 60-day beta kind of early access program, you know that this is a good fit for you, and you have a research proposal ready. You have all your kind of, institutional interlocutors in place in order to move this application along. Feel free to bypass the early access program, go straight to the general access application through ICPSR. You'll notice the link is available here at socialmediaarchive.org. So that's the archive where the application is hosted, and you can just click on that link and begin the application process directly via ICPSR. So I will note there are a few, as I said, a few extra eligibility requirements compared to the early access program. I won't go through all of them, but you have to, for instance, submit a research proposal, disclose your funding sources, fill out a general questionnaire, as well as have your university sign a data sharing agreement to access the tools. So kind of, again, seeing how there's a few extra steps involved in general access. If you want to do the early access program to be immediately kind of begin testing the tools, that's kind of why we have it set up. So I know it's a bit, kind of a lot of information there. So happy to follow up as well, if there's any questions in the Q&A about kind of either parallel track for accessing these tools. So one last slide I want to show before going into the demo is this comparison of the two clean rooms essentially that we have set up for researchers using this tool. So I mentioned in the general principles slide that part of our approach to privacy with these tools is implementing a data clean room. You'll notice that essentially the first one on the left is what you will gain access to for the early access program, which is our Meta hosted clean room, which is the Meta Researcher platform. But then if you apply for general access, you will have a third-party data clean room that will be hosting the API. And the reason that I've kind of included this slide is to both give you a general sense of what the clean room process and environment kind of looks like, but also to really give you a nice kind of comparison between some of the advantages that the third-party data clean room has over the Meta Researcher platform. So I'll just call out a few of those. For instance, there's a few more software tooling options available in the third-party clean room beyond just the R and Python languages supported within the Meta Researcher platform. There's also access to multimedia directly from the API in the third-party data clean room, as opposed to the Meta Researcher platform. And then the last thing I wanted to really focus in on is the deletion sync policy. So as I mentioned, in the privacy safeguards section of this presentation, in order to honor kind of user privacy expectations, we delete any data that was either deleted by users or made private from them within 30 days of a user's request. So what this looks like in the early access version on the Meta Researcher platform is that at the first of each month, all of the data from a researcher's notebook is deleted remotely by Meta. And that includes both data that was deleted or made private by users, but also data that wasn't deleted or made private by users. So it's a kind of blunt instrument where we, in order to kind of comply with user privacy expectations, we remove all of the output cells essentially from a researcher notebook within the API environment on the Meta Researcher platform. None of the input code or any of the scripts that you ran to generate those output cells are removed, so those are retained. So essentially the idea is at the first of each month, once all of the output rows are removed remotely by Meta from your researcher notebook, you would still have the code that originally populated those output rows. And so you just rerun that code. The output cells would regenerate, but now with all of the data that was deleted or made private by users within that 30-day timeframe no longer surfacing. So, we understand that this is a slightly cumbersome process for researchers to have to deal with. So part of our efforts to kind of remediate some of those pain points is to implement in the third-party data clean room a specific deletion endpoint that's given to users to track the deletion status of data in their own environments. So in other words, rather than in the Meta Researcher platform having all the output rows removed at the first of each month, in the third-party data clean room that we'll have set up for general access, users will have their own endpoint to deploy themselves and execute themselves, in order to kind of remove user-deleted public data on their side rather than having it remotely removed by Meta. So hopefully, this is a way to make kind of complying with the privacy safeguards much simpler, much easier, and kind of less of a pain point for researchers via this deletion endpoint in the third-party data clean room that we'll have set up for general access. So again, I know this is a lot of information, so it can be slightly kind of overwhelming. So please, put in questions in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to clarify or kind of give more details on any of the differences between these clean rooms or kind of our clean room system more generally. So now I'm going to go into some of the fun stuff and just give you a tour around the user interface, as I said. So I'll be kind of supplying the demonstration of Meta Content Libraries UI, and then my colleague Michael, I'll hand things over to him to give you an overview of Meta Content Libraries API. So essentially what you're looking at right now is the landing page for Meta Content Libraries user interface. So when you log into the tool, this is essentially what you'll see. And basically what I'll do is just input a query into the search box, and then show you around some of the filter options and other features available within the user interface. So let's say I'm a researcher who's interested in stories about generative AI, and I want to drill down to specific content related to that keyword. So first thing I would do is enter generative AI into the search bar, hit return. And now you see the default results for my search term generative AI. And so I'll just kind of scroll down to give you a sense of what these results look like, how they're surfaced within the tool. So this is kind of the way posts are structured. This is kind of the way you can see public content within the user interface. Before I get into some of the filtering options, I did want to note a few important things. So one is that since this is a controlled access environment, data download is not permitted. So you cannot download or export any of the data that is serviced either within the user interface or the API. So, you can't export any kind of data about like the raw data about these posts or anything related to the posts themselves. So controlled access environment. Secondly, all personally identifiable information, unique identifiers, and at mentions are scrubbed from the dataset. So anything involving personally identifiable information will not surface as well in these results. Finally, user comments are also not included in the dataset. I should say the text of the comments. So for instance, you can see how many comments a post has received, but you cannot actually search for or view the text of the comments themselves. All these steps, as I've already kind of emphasized in the privacy safeguards, these are all done to uphold them and, again, honor user expectations for their privacy, both on Facebook and Instagram and all of Meta's platforms. The next thing I want to note before getting into showing you around some of the features is that the search results surfaced in the user interface are a rank sample of the top 1,000 posts of your search query. So in other words, within the user interface, you will not see the entirety of all public posts related to your query, but rather the top 1,000 posts based on your search term. And this can be sorted one of three ways. So the default is highest to lowest views, and I'll get into more details about what that metric means. I've already alluded to it earlier, but I'll give you a sense of how this works in practice. The other ways that the top 1,000 search results can be sorted is either by most to least recent, as well as least to most recent. I should note that this ranking is only applied to results in the user interface. So in the API, you have access to the entirety of the data set. So this is just kind of applied within the user interface environment. So now I'll just go into giving you a tour around some of the filtering options. First things first, you can switch your results between either Facebook or Instagram. So you can toggle whether you want your results to return content or public content from Facebook or Instagram by going to this tab here. You can also input custom date ranges for your search results using this calendar tool, which is available here. There's also preset date ranges you can apply. And you'll also notice that by default, the results are returned for all time. And what this means is the entirety of public content on Facebook and Instagram throughout its historical archive. So this dates back to, I think, around 2004. So you have a very wide span of public content to narrow down and search within this date range filter. The next filter is this posted to tab, which essentially allows you to select for a specific endpoint you want to see your results from. As I said, the content within Facebook, within the Meta Content Library, includes public pages, public groups, and public events. So let's say I only want to search for results related to generative AI from public Facebook groups. I could select the group endpoint, and then my results would refresh to show posts in public groups related to my keyword generative AI. Another relatively self-explanatory filter is language. So you can select from the over 180 plus languages represented in this data set by just scrolling through this dropdown. You can also search for specific languages within the search box. Media type is another kind of more self-explanatory filter. So you can select for your results to show photos, videos, and reels, or this miscellaneous category, which includes links and reshares. I should also note that this is the first time Reels has ever been represented in any of our Meta research products, so we're particularly excited to have that within the Meta Content Library as well. I already alluded a few times to this view count metric, and essentially what this views filter allows you to do is create a range to either minimal or maximal amount of views a post has received. So let's say I want this view count to max out at 1 million. I'll drag that down with this bar here. And now my posts have reloaded to show only a maximum of 1 million views. Only 1 million times a post has been viewed. So also just wanted to give you more details on what this means. So essentially, what the view count metric measures is how many views a post has received since the time it was created, right? So over its lifetime. So essentially, I've now narrowed my search results to only show posts that were viewed 1 million times or fewer since the time they were created, right? So this is going now from ascending to descending order from a maximum of 1 million views and then onwards on down. The last filter I want to show you is this producers tab. So let's say I only want to see content related to my search term generative AI from specific public Facebook pages or specific producers. So essentially this producers tab allows you to do that. And the way to do it is to, let's say, type in the search box for a specific producer. Let's say I only want to see stories, for instance, about generative AI from Forbes magazine's public Facebook page. So I would type in Forbes, see it as the top result, select it and hit apply. And now my results have reloaded, as you can tell, to only show posts about generative AI from Forbes magazine's public Facebook page. You can add more than one producer to this filter, so you can just keep adding multiple producers. There's also this useful producer list feature, which allows you to create a set of producers ahead of time and then apply them as a filter. And that way you don't have to keep manually adding producers every time you want to use like a certain preset list of custom producers to your search results. There's also another aspect of the producer list feature that I'll come around to at the end to show you. But I just wanted to also go over some of the more general features about the user interface. So one feature is the ability to save your search. To do so, you would just hover to this bookmark icon, click it, enter a name for your saved search, and it saves it on the left-hand side here on this tab, on the Save Searches tab. You'll notice that the Save Search feature saves not just the actual search term you use, but all the filters that you apply to your search as well. So this allows for a really easy recall, not just of your keyword, but also all the filters you used to kind of refine your results as well. As I said, there is an aspect of the, another aspect of the producer list feature I just wanted to quickly go over. So what I'm going to do is re-enter the Meta Content Library's user interface without entering a keyword. So you'll notice that I don't have any results because I haven't entered a search term. And that's typically how the Meta Content Library's user interface functions. So you need to enter a search term typically to then kind of surface results and refine them and kind of use that as your entry into exploring the data set. But let's say I want to look at a set of producers without having to anchor them or kind of index them to a specific search term. The way you do that is go back to this producers tab, go to this producer list sub-tab, and you'll notice I've created already a preset list of producers ahead of time. And this is the public Facebook pages of the 2020 Democratic presidential primary candidates. So you see 8 producers in total. So what I do is select that, hit apply. And now you see I have results of the top posts sorted by view count from the public Facebook pages of the 8 Democratic presidential primary candidates. And I haven't had to use a specific search term for these results to surface. So this is essentially just another way of kind of entering the data, exploring the data, and visually kind of interacting with the data without having to anchor it to a specific keyword. The last feature I want to show before I hand things off to Michael is the user interface's code generator tool. As the name suggests, essentially what it allows you to do is generate a script automatically in either Python or R based on the search term that you used, as well as the filters you applied to your search. And to activate this, you go to this icon, click it. And as you see, this code has been automatically generated within this box. You can toggle using these tabs between this script being either in R or Python. And essentially what you're looking at is a script that's generated, again, based on the search term that you used and the filters that you applied for your search. And the idea essentially behind this workflow is you can copy a clipboard directly from here, paste it into the API environment, and then continue onwards with the search that you began with in the user interface, now with all the kind of powerful analytical and programmatic tools at your disposal within the API. So yeah, that about does it for me. Happy again to come back around and answer any questions that you may have about the demo or the overview I gave prior to the demo as well. But for now, I'm gonna hand things off to Michael, and I'll stop sharing my screen and pass the mic over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Pierre. So I'm Michael Zurab. I'm going to be giving the API demo. I'm also honored to be a repeat guest. Last year, I talked about the use of social media ads for research, which is definitely one way researchers have used Meta's tools. And now, and in that case, it's interesting, right? Because researchers like found a product Meta made without thinking about researchers and then made it work for their use case. Whereas now we're talking about a product that Meta made specifically for researchers to try to enable study of public content. I'm a political scientist by background, so the API example I'm going to show is kind of drawn on that, American politics, but it's just a demo that I made. I'm going to show you how to use the API, focusing on a very specific example, building on what Yair just showed you, the posts made by Facebook's presidential primary candidates on the Democratic Party in the US during the 2020 election. I'm showing you this demo within Meta's researcher platform. This is the environment you will use if you join the beta. So it looked like this. It's a kind of collection of Jupyter notebooks. There's both an R version and a Python version. And the way you run queries within the API is through a content library API package that Meta has built. And it essentially includes functions like search posts, search IG posts, search pages, etc., that you can run to query the public content that matches your interests, basically. So this right here, this search posts call gets all of the posts made by the 8 major presidential primary candidates in the Democratic primary in 2020. So that's what it looks like. You can check whether your query has completed with this get search status function. As you can see, it's in progress. Takes maybe like 30 seconds, 45 seconds for a query like this to run. I'll circle back to show that it has run, but I've actually already run this and saved it to file. So to keep things moving, I'll read it in. So this is a query that I already run and saved to file within the researcher platform, run it back in. This is sort of what the results look like. It's got text, reactions like likes and love counts, language, creation time, etc. This is the full set of fields that are returned from the posts endpoint on Facebook. So yeah, you can see reactions, post owner type, view count, things like this. There's also information about external links to external websites that are included or attached to posts. And so we can kind of very quickly move from, with just a few lines of code, move into making substantive comparisons between pages on Facebook, which is potentially a use case researchers might be concerned with. So this table right here shows the share of posts with links to external websites for the set of pages. As you can see, there's quite a lot of variation. For Kamala Harris, the majority of her posts or her pages posts linked to an external website, whereas for some other candidates, it was much closer to the minority. If you look at some of the most common domains that these pages directed people on Facebook to, you can see that it's largely mainstream media sources in the United States. So like New York Times, Washington Post, but there's also some personal candidate websites, as well as some fundraising websites. ActBlue is a website that in particular Democratic candidates use in the United States to raise money. And so sort of drilling into that a little more, the share of external link posts that are to a fundraising website, as you can see, there's a ton of variation that sort of matches our intuitions. Mike Bloomberg maybe matches our intuitions. Mike Bloomberg, who self-funded his campaign, was independently wealthy. He did not post any fundraising links, whereas some other candidates posted, maybe a quarter of the post to links were posts were links to fundraising websites. So that's, one source of heterogeneity you can explore is links to external websites and make comparisons across pages. Another metric that you can explore within the Meta content library that's perhaps particularly exciting is view counts, because existing Meta products did not systematically provide researchers or anyone with access to the number of views that a post received. Instead, it provided things like reactions, likes, and so forth. But view count, cumulative view count is of course an important metric for describing a platform and the kinds of information that are being transmitted. So this plot just shows the average number of views per post in thousands of views across this set of pages. And you can see there's a lot of variation from like 75,000 for some of the less prominent candidates to, around 350,000 for Joe Biden, who became the presumptive nominee and then president. You can see the figure here. Within the researcher platform, you can copy the image and then paste it. You can also save an image to file like this. And finally, you can also save an image to file within this virtual data clean room and then export the figure to your computer. So I will show you that now. That's not the right place, figures. So this also allows me to show you the full-sized image where the labels are properly spaced. But yeah, this is the plot, and then you can, of course, save the image to file. So while you can't export the raw posts themselves, you are, of course, able to export the derivative analyses, figures, aggregate statistics, tables, regression coefficients, what have you. So view counts and comparison across pages, that might be one thing that researchers use these tools to explore. Another source of variation, of course, is variation over time and across pages. So I'm just going to show some plots that illustrate those sorts of heterogeneities. So this shows the number of posts, basically the activity of these different pages and how that varies over time for this set of pages. One thing that stands out and is almost dominates this plot, where you have the shared y-axis across pages, is that Bernie Sanders' Facebook page posted quite a lot more than all of the other pages, like perhaps an order of magnitude more, including in some points in the campaign, basically like 300 posts within a week. So this is these are quite a lot of posts being made by that page relative to some of the other pages. If you relax the y-axis, you can to vary across these pages. You see more temporal variation. So like around Super Tuesday and the Iowa caucuses just before then, which are like the first contests in a primary election in the US, you see a lot more post activity. And then you see a lot of trailing off afterwards, especially for candidates who suspended their campaigns. And then if you look at view counts, so this is basically the rolling number of views in the previous 31 days for this set of pages. You also see some interesting patterns. For some candidates, there's a sort of drop-off effect, which corresponds to their dropping out of the election. For other candidates, like Joe Biden, who became the presumptive nominee and then actual nominee, you see a sort of gradual increase in the number of views over time. And then for Kamala Harris, who became the vice presidential nominee, you see this big spike at the very end of the campaign period, which is when she was announced as the vice presidential candidate. So, all the ways in which events in the real world seem to be reflected on social media. And of course, this is just to motivate you to think about research questions that have similar characteristics that you could explore using the API. Of course, another thing you can look at is text. And so I'm just going to show some toy examples for illustrating how you can analyze public content based on the text of the posts. So here I'm just coding posts as 1 or 0 based on whether they mention explicitly Trump, as in Donald Trump, the incumbent president during this time period. And you can see, first of all, that there's quite a lot of variation across candidates. Let me just make this bigger. Quite a lot of variation across candidates in whether they mentioned Trump's name in a post. So it varies from like 3% for Pete Buttigieg to almost a third or 30% of Joe Biden's post explicitly mentioned Trump. And you can, take the characteristics of text and see how they're related to things like view count or post reaction. So just kind of showing what that looks like, both with and without a sort of dummy indicating the post name, or sorry, the page owner, the post owner name. One thing that seems to sort of be apparent is that there's not much evidence of a relationship between the mentioning Trump and a post getting more views, particularly if you look within page. In fact, if you look within page, there's really no evidence of that. That posts that mention Trump's name get more views. It doesn't seem to really affect that. But if you look at interactions, so things like comments or reshares, for example, you see quite a lot. You see quite a strong positive relationship. So posts that mention Trump's name tended to attract a lot more comments. While we can't, the text of the comments are not included in the tool, we might still be able to make some guesses or speculation about the nature of those texts, of the text of those comments, given what we know and also what we get from reactions. So if we look at love count, for example, the number of times people reacted with a love emoji to a post, it is very strongly negatively related to the post mentioning Trump's name. So people were more likely to comment on these posts, but much less likely to click the love reaction than other posts by these pages. And by contrast, if we look at the angry reaction, there is really a massive relationship between the angry reaction and mentioning Donald Trump explicitly. So I guess to summarize, right, posts among the set of pages, which were the pages of major politicians in the opposite political party, mentioning the incumbent president's name wasn't related to posts being viewed more, but it was related to posts being commented on a lot more and angry reacted a lot more. And we know that this isn't because more people were seeing these posts. It was because conditional on being seen, people were much more likely to engage in these ways. So that's, I guess, the big takeaway. I did just want to show that the query I ran at the very beginning has concluded. It probably finished a while ago, but as you can see, when the query is concluded, this changes to complete, and then you can take a fresh pull of the data and see, this is what it looks like. So this is the data that I queried just now, not the data I saved prior to the demo. This is just posts by pages on Facebook, which is only one of many, many different kinds of endpoints that you can explore using the Meta Content Library API. You can also look at things like you can query page information directly. So search not for posts from pages, but for a set of pages that match certain characteristics. So if you wanted to search for pages that included the phrase Liberal Party or something like that, or Christian Democratic Party, you could do that. You could search for groups that meet certain criteria, Facebook events. And then on Instagram, there's sort of similar functions for looking at posts and accounts. There's also, lots of different fields you get when you query these things. I think many of them are going to be kind of obvious, like view counts, reaction counts, post creation date, post text, things like this. But maybe there are some that are more subtle that you hadn't considered, but could be useful, like the categories of Facebook pages that the page manager selected, locations of pages when a Facebook page administrator discloses that on a publicly available page, name changes, whether the page has run ads or is running political ads, has run political ads, things like this. For Instagram, there's content or metadata more specifically related to Instagram. So things like the media type, whether it's a still image or a video. There's also hashtag information. All this is to say that there's a lot of heterogeneity to explore, some of which Meta has not previously provided, like view counts or reels. And we're excited to that we have the opportunity to provide that to you now. So I think that's all for me. I think we're on time, and we have some time to get through your questions.
Great. Fantastic overview, super helpful and clear. And what a great product. I think you will definitely, see a lot of users jumping onto this. You're providing so much information that we can analyze, that, for example, views and so on, that, is ultimately, maybe what kind of disseminates, right, through social media. It's not always that everyone reacts, and there's, clearly, biases towards what maybe people react, but the views is really, what people see. So that's fantastic that you added this. We answered already quite a few questions on the way, because questions are not seen on the recording. So let me just quickly summarize this, so you can catch your breath, and then we go to the and read maybe over the open questions, and then we go through this. So maybe just to summarize for those who have missed the Q&A or who are just joining us through the recording. There's different languages you can use when you do your research. I'm impressed with some of the minority languages you added there. So this is not just for English speakers, but it seems to be very inclusive. So that's great. And I guess there were more questions about kind of downloadability. I already saw a question about replicability, but as became more obvious from the demonstration, the data is not downloadable. It's just the output we produce that we can download. Great to see that there's no charge, it's for free. Again, that speaks to also the global reach. So being inclusive to researchers from less developed countries. So it's completely free of charge. And the last question I actually missed myself. Yeah, we will upload everything, the recording and the slides as well, with the links and everything. So I would say then we turn to some of the questions. One question was, what if the project requires more than 30 days? So from what I gathered, I also understood that. So we have kind of 30 days, and then the deletion will kind of, or like maybe you can clarify this. Like it's just like sit down, do it now. Yeah.
This is a great question. And it's genuinely confusing, in part because there's what happens when you have demo access, where the deletion requirement is stricter, and then there's what happens when you have general access, where the deletion requirements are less strict. Either way, right? You can query posts from more than 30 days ago. What happens with the demo access is that on the first of each month, any posts that you've read, you've queried and then saved to file within the researcher platform, go away. As well as the cells, if you had printed the first 5 posts or something and it was in the cell of your Jupyter notebook, that cell would go away. That's going to change when you have general access. Instead, what will happen is basically you'll be told these are the posts that were deleted, that you queried and have in your that you have saved within your virtual environment. You need to delete those posts to comply with the deletion policy. So it's not going to be this kind of brute force. It's just all wiped. Instead, it will just be you're told which posts were deleted, but you can analyze posts from what is it, 2004 even on Facebook, as long as users haven't deleted them. And you can certainly take more than 30 days to write a paper with these data. That's not an issue.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. As researchers, it's very often that we get sidetracked, and there's suddenly teaching and committee meetings, and then it's oh yeah, there was this project. So I guess that's really helpful to know. There was a question about access, and of course, there's a lot of legality, and you are operating in a very sensitive area about user protection and privacy and so on. So I guess maybe can you just clarify how does it work for people from especially outside the US? Maybe you can talk a bit more about the process of the applying for access and how you assess kind of that independent researcher. Yeah.
I can quickly take that. So just like Yair and the team said, there are 2 methods of access right now. The first one is a 60-day demo access, which you can apply directly through Meta for. And this is just to give you an opportunity to test out the waters before you commit to the longer application process for long-term access through the third-party vetting partner that we have, ICPSR. So again, that first method I just mentioned was the 60-day demo access, which is a much simpler application flow. And you may choose to decide to apply directly to the long-term access, but note that there are a few more requirements for that, of course, including things like an IRB, as well as a few other application form requirements. So that you would apply directly through ICPSR, who's our third-party vetting partner at the University of Michigan. And to reiterate what Yair said earlier, Meta does not play a role in vetting for access. It is completely done by our third parties. So it is an independent sort of review process. And you can view the eligibility requirements there, but yeah, hopefully that helps answer the question as well.
Yeah, great. I see Michael's still typing. Let's go then to some other questions as well. Mitra asked a bit more about kind of how data is retrieved, the search terms. Like, is this kind of about hashtags or keywords? Maybe you can just kind of go over this again in more detail about kind of how we queries when we maybe look for like specific terms and so on.
Maybe I can take this one. So it does search the text of the post. So yeah, and there are different, like you can also do Boolean search. So you could do like this word and not this word, like sort of simple Boolean operations are included. It searched the text of the post. There's a little bit of sort of like, it's not an exact word necessarily in the sense that like it will match stems, like if that makes sense, like similar words that aren't the exact word. But you can also search, yeah, it matches the text of the post essentially. So if the text is mentioned, then it will surface when you search by keyword.
Great. Good clarification that we can use, more complex searches rather than. I think that's also important. Maybe let me just go to
one other very quick thing that we should have mentioned is you can also search for a link, right? Like if you have a specific link, you can search for that link and get posts that match the link. So that's another way to search.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I guess with these kind of things, there's a lot of trial and error once people go on and they might discover things and so on, but it sounds like that you designed it in a way to be quite flexible, which is what we need, right? Let me just maybe go also to the kind of one of the attendees asking about kind of analyzing the text or analyzing kind of more networks, right? So that goes beyond kind of the searches that you were also talking about. So doing more specific text analyses, work embedded or topic models, these kind of things. How would we do that? Is that also possible then? Yeah.
You can definitely do text analyses, right? Like you can use common packages or install packages from CRAN and from PyPy into the environment and build topic models based on the text of posts that you've queried. I think with respect to networks, I think because no information in the social graph is sort of directly revealed, right? Like you're not seeing friendship connections between people. You're not seeing which users follow which posts. So I think it's not, there are certain network analyses that basically are not possible because it would require us to disclose a lot of personal information that we're not including in the tool. I think what you can do, for example, are like look at shared hashtags across a set of posts. I think this is probably easier to do on Instagram, where hashtags are provided as part of the post endpoint. So you could look at like the set of professional Instagram accounts that are referencing the same hashtags, and that could be like a node that connects different Instagram accounts. So there are like certain network analyses you can do, but I do think like a lot of network analysis is based on what ordinary users follow, and that's not kind of within scope of the tool.
Yeah, fair enough. That maybe then leads nicely to another question about kind of the differences between Facebook and Instagram. We already kind of hinted at this now. Kind of what's the differences? I mean, you showed us at the end, kind of a nice tool where you kind of look also at the different kind of properties that we can search on a different platform. So maybe we can just direct them again to that website, but maybe you can just summarize a bit what's the differences between the two platforms in terms of the content library, of course.
Yeah, I mean the surfaces included are different, right? So like on Facebook, it's public pages, like any page regardless of follower count that is fully public is included. It's public groups regardless of follower count. and then it's public events. Whereas on Instagram, there's not like pages and groups in the same kind of way. Instead, it's kind of public professional Instagram accounts. So the content, like the sort of what is within scope is different. The set of posts is different based on the platform. And then the results that you get are a little different based on the platform. So on Instagram, you get things like information about the media type. So is it a video or like a photo album or a single image? Whereas on Facebook, you get information about like, political ads, running ads, like on Facebook pages. Like these are different kinds of, more tailored to the way that the tools are used. You also get hashtags on Instagram kind of for free because hashtags are built into the tool in a way that they're not on Facebook. They're sort of more directly embedded within Instagram posts. So yeah, those are some examples. I think, yeah, the data dictionary that we'll share these links with you. You could also probably find them downstream of some public web pages for the product. Will list every field that gets returned, and that's probably the easiest way to kind of grasp the nuances.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very helpful. There are two questions about replication. Obviously it's not possible to download the data, and then also the data changes, naturally. So what would you recommend? Because, especially in political science, we have now rightfully like a kind of revolution that, we need replicability as really one cornerstone of doing science and doing research. So what shall we do? Like in that case, I mean, we have the code, sure, but it's very difficult to replicate the results. What would you say?
I mean,
what do you recommend us?
First thing to say is it's a genuine problem, right? Like, and as you mentioned, it's almost like a problem with APIs in some respects too. The data changes, which is sort of an issue. You can export the code and share the code as part of your replication files. Like that's not a problem. But of course, even if someone were to get access and run the exact same code, they might not get the exact same results because the underlying data changed. So there's like a fundamental issue there that we certainly appreciate. We are exploring what we can do about this. I don't think we have like a concrete solution that we can share right now, but we're exploring how we might be able to enable like a kind of independent verification of results. So like a third party that might be able to check whether results, or basically document that at a certain point in time, certain code produced certain results. But this is still early and we can't promise anything, but like, I guess what we can say is like, we get it, that this is an issue and we're seriously thinking about what we can do to try to enable it.
Okay. Great to hear. I mean, I'm sure that will come. Like things take a while until we, get to that point where a journal asks us for our replication file. But maybe in a year's time, people will start be like, what am I going to do about this? So yeah, great that you're aware of this. There's a few more questions about kind of clarification on kind of search queries, and I think you mentioned that kind of only like 1,000 posts are shown, but yeah.
That just to clarify, that's for the user interface, so not the APIs. The API, it's rate limited at like 100,000 posts, I think, per query, but you still have access to the full data set, so you can kind of collate the data based on that rate limit. But the 1,000 is from the user interface side, so you only have the ranking from the UI, not the API.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm also like maybe somebody else wants to jump in. Am I forgetting anything? So we had the one about replication. Talked already about exporting the data. I don't know, Michael, whether you want to share your code that you demonstrated. I mean, that was kind of like looked like relatively straightforward R code, but
yeah,
I
don't think it was anything special. And if you don't have access to the tool, you can't use it. But if you do get access to the tool, I will send it to you for sure. If you want, we can make that happen. Otherwise,
somebody asked also about Stata. So you did mention that the third-party platform will have Stata as well, right? So there's different tools available. Fantastic. Okay, so anybody want to pick up on any of the other questions here? That's a good one. Which countries are included in the content library? So do you literally use the entire, global Facebook, content, or is it still restricted to users from specific countries?
I can take that. So it is global. So we're the scope of this data is global in nature. There are a few exceptions with countries that are on the sanctions list or have otherwise like privacy regulations, that kind of prohibit them from servicing data within the meta content library. But in the general kind of scheme of things, it is just a global data set, of countries represented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a kind of follow-up questions regarding also researchers from Russia. These kind of, I guess, things will probably also play into the vetting process, maybe. So it's not just the content, but then also in the vetting process.
Yeah, so it's not the exact same set of countries, but broadly like the countries that are sanctioned by the US or the UK, and it's slightly more complicated than that, but that's tend not to be able to be eligible for access. So yeah, like Russia, Iran, North Korea. I mean, there are a few more, Cuba, but these countries tend not to be able, researchers from those countries tend not to be able to get access. But otherwise it's global.
Okay. Yeah, there's some more also technical questions at the end about kind of code downloading, the kind of download the notebook from the platform. Not sure what this refers to.
You can absolutely download the notebooks. You just can't download the raw posts. When you download the notebooks, it will scrub the this output cells as a heads up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's then, yeah. Okay, I think that we probably went through most of it, or yeah. I think we'll probably leave it here. It was a very loads of questions. As I told you, Michael, there will be many questions, and it's great because it really helped to clarify a few questions, and given kind of just seeing the how people interacted with your talk, and having follow-up questions, I think gives you a clear indication that there's a lot of interest and people are excited about starting to work with this. So very happy to had the opportunity to learn more about this and share it with our community, and hopefully many researchers come up with great ideas to write papers using this fantastic new tool that you put together. So thanks very much for that. We have another webinar next week by Sasa Sindel, and she's gonna talk about TikTok and how we can use it to recruit survey participants. So I have, of course, covered how to use Meta platforms to recruit survey participants, and it's great to see that we're also maybe doing that with other platforms. So very much looking forward to learn more about that. We will be back to our usual time at 3 o'clock UK time because she's joining us from Germany and not from the other side of the world where it's like morning. So you three have a nice day. Thank you very much. Big applause, and hopefully you can come back with new innovations and products that you're bringing to us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Has somebody stopped the recording already or no? Okay, sorry.
No, you should